Today, we're going to talk about a really incredible story of survival and leadership. It comes from one of India's worst ever natural disasters, the 1999 super cyclone in Orissa. And right at the heart of it all is a young man named Prashant. His journey through all that devastation is just, well, it's truly remarkable. So let's dive into how one person found the strength to weather an unbelievable storm.
Okay, so picture this. The date is October 27th, 1999. Prashant, a young man, is visiting a friend in a place called ERSAMA, which is just about 18 kilometers from his own village. What starts out as a totally normal day turns into a complete nightmare as this dark, menacing storm just appears out of nowhere with terrifying speed.
Now, the storm that hit wasn't just any storm. No, this was a super cyclone. And just surviving its first hit, well, that took a whole lot of luck, strength, and just pure will to live.
Can you even imagine winds hitting you at 350 kilometers per hour? That's faster than a speeding train. I mean, huge, ancient trees were literally being ripped out of the ground, and houses were just washed away. The sound must have been absolutely deafening as this angry, neck-deep water started swirling into his friend's home.
For the next 36 hours, this was their world. They were trapped on the rooftop of a sturdy brick house, huddled together, freezing in the cold, non-stop rain, just listening to the world being torn apart around them.
When the sun finally came up, the true horror of it all was revealed. As far as Prashant could see, there was just a brown sheet of floodwater covering absolutely everything. The only things sticking out were the shattered remains of houses and, grimly, the bodies of animals and people floating on the surface.
After 2 days that must have felt like 2 years, the rain finally stopped, and Prashant knew, despite all the dangers, he had to try and find his family. This one decision kicked off an unbelievable journey back to his village.
This wasn't just a walk, it was a brutal, grueling expedition. He used a long stick to feel for the hidden road underneath all that water. He had to wade through waist-deep currents, and at times, he even had to swim. And all along the way, he had to push bodies out of his path and see entire villages that had just vanished.
You can just feel the sheer grit it must have taken. Every single step forward was a battle against the current, the debris, and this overwhelming feeling of loss that was just everywhere.
With every village he passed that was just wiped off the map, his hope started to shrink. He'd already lost his mother years before, and the thought of losing his entire family again was just crushing. He started to weep, totally convinced that they were all gone. But after that long, desperate journey, what was he going to find? Let's see what happened when Prashant, against every single odd, finally reached his village of Kalikuda.
His heart must have just gone cold. His home was gone. All that was left were bits and pieces of the roof, with his family's belongings all mangled and caught up in the branches of the trees nearby. It looked like his worst fears had come true.
Feeling desperate, he headed for the Red Cross shelter. And there, in that huge crowd, he saw her, his grandmother. She was weak from hunger, but she was alive. She rushed to him, her eyes just brimming with tears. They had all thought he was dead. The news just spread like wildfire through the camp, and soon his entire extended family was there. His brother, his sister, his uncles, and aunts. They all just hugged him so tightly, this motley, battered group, all bound together by the miracle that they had all survived. But that incredible, personal relief was quickly overshadowed by the scale of the tragedy all around them. The real work was just beginning, and the community was completely adrift. The reality of what had happened was just staggering. 2,500 people were crammed into that shelter. His village alone had lost 86 people, and every single one of its 96 houses had been completely washed away. They had managed to survive for 4 days on just a few green coconuts, but that supply was running out. A heavy, deathly grief was settling over the crowd. They were survivors, yes, but they were totally leaderless and losing whatever hope they had left.
And seeing this total vacuum of leadership, Prashant, who was only 19 years old, mind you, made a decision. If no one else was going to step up, he would.
And he didn't waste a second. He showed incredible initiative, immediately organizing a group of young people to persuade a local merchant to give them rice. He set up teams of volunteers to clean the filth from the shelter. He tended to the wounded, and he came up with a really brilliant plan to get help from the sky. He had the children lie down in the sand with empty utensils on their stomachs. It was such a clear, powerful message to the relief helicopters flying overhead, "We are hungry." And you know what? It worked. The message got through, and they started getting regular airdrops of food and supplies.
But getting food was really just the first step. Prashant quickly realized that the deepest wounds weren't the physical ones. His next big challenge was to help his community heal its spirit. The government was planning to set up separate institutions for the orphans and the widows. But Prashant, with his incredible empathy, he resisted that idea. He knew that what those children needed was love, and what the widows needed was a community. So his plan was to create new families right there in the village, pairing childless widows with orphan children so they could heal together. He just understood the power of having a purpose and the power of play. He got the women involved in a food for work program, which gave them a role and a routine. And for the children, he organized sports, including his own favorite, cricket, to bring just a little bit of normalcy back into their shattered lives. And here's the really remarkable thing. By taking care of his community, Prashant was also healing himself. He just didn't have time to dwell on his own pain. Instead, this 19-year-old became the face of hope for every single person who had lost everything.
Prashant's story leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? It wasn't his age or some special experience that made him a leader. It was his choice to act with courage and with compassion when everyone else was paralyzed by grief. It really makes you wonder, what does it truly take to lead when everything falls apart?